Thanks for joining us for this episode, and I do want to remind you to make sure that you are following us on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you may listen to podcasts. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/@churchadvance, and you can actually watch video versions of each episode. We'd also really appreciate it if you could leave us a 5-star review and share this content with other pastors and church leaders. We want to help as many of these folks as we can, and so we'd really appreciate you sharing this episode with your friends. Well, thanks again for joining us as we begin today's episode and continue to advance a reformation of fellowship, partnership, and gospel hope amongst Bible-believing pastors and churches. This is Church Advance with Brian Sams.
Well, hey, welcome to the Church Advance podcast with Brian Sams. And, well, as you can tell, back here with the former co-host of what was the Brian Sams podcast, Chan.
It is good to be back.
Yeah, man.
It's been a wild ride.
It's been a wild ride. It's been a little bit since you've been on the show. I think we maybe interviewed you one time since you retired and moved on to like more significant things with your life.
Benefits,
full pension. And here we are. I just thought I'd bring this up right here on my table.
Hey, we may not be friends after this.
We won't be. Yeah, so we're recording this at the Church Advance conference.
Yep.
We're getting geared up. Starts this here in just a few hours. But we're also doing some recording during this time. And you were right around the hallway here. I was like, we got to get an update from Mr. Chan. So we're, 3-4 days before Super Bowl 53? 50, what is it?
58, right?
I don't know what it is.
Yeah, something.
58? Okay, it's 58. I don't know what I'm talking about. But it's going to be a good one. I'm a Chiefs fan.
I'm a
Chan's a San Francisco fan because he likes homosexuals. Oh, that was terrible. I don't know. I don't know, man. You get in the room on the camera and everything changes, man. Like things. I mean, your reputation precedes you. So controversial and all this. But anyways, I hope the 49ers lose, and I'm sure you hope the Chiefs
I hope that. Yeah.
And may the Chiefs win. So. But anyways, man, it's good to have you back, and it's been a fun year. And I wanted to get you on here to do a little bit of a life update, specifically about the church plant. So before we get into that, why don't you just give us a little update, like what's going on in your family, what's going on in your life, and tell us just about the church itself first, and then we'll get into some.
Yeah. So family's doing great. We are expecting our second daughter now. We haven't actually.
Oh.
So those of you that are listening, you're probably the first to know it's actually a girl.
I didn't even know that till the air right here.
Yeah,
so you got a baby, girl number 2's on the way.
Girl number 2. So Reagan is 18 months old right now. She's loving life. She's crawling all over, climbing everything, hurting herself, injuring herself in any way possible. It's great. And my wife Annie's doing well. We're expecting our second daughter in June, so we're pretty excited about that. Yeah.
Good, man. Congrats on you're gonna be a girl dad.
Yep.
All the way.
Oh, yeah.
All the way. You'll be having ramen noodles real soon.
Oh, awesome. Yep.
By the way, I had the best ramen I think I've ever had in my life over at Fancy Sushi over on Atlantic Boulevard.
I've been wanting to try that.
They have fantastic
was it good?
ramen. Yeah, I was thinking about you, Chan.
Okay, yeah.
Anytime around anything Asian, I'm thinking
from the forefront of your mind.
Yeah, go save China, man. Go save China. Yeah. So great. And then of course a year ago, basically, well, a little over a year ago, we started this process, but from River City, replanted Oak Harbor Baptist Church into the Hope Church in Mayport, Florida. So tell us a little bit about Mayport. Just remind everybody a little bit about Mayport, the culture that you're ministering in, and then we'll go on about like what's been going on.
Well, first, I just want to say that the church replant would not be made possible without River City. And I think every church plant, maybe not every church plant, but any church planter that has a strong sending church that is deeply invested is going to do well. And I think we've seen that. here at Mayport. I wouldn't be able to do this without River City and their support, and not be able to focus as much as I have been this past year. So Mayport is a military community. It's a retiree community. It is. I was actually looking at a demographic study that I'm doing for one of my seminary classes, and 20% of the population of 32233 is what's known as singles and starters.
Mm.
So these people that are just getting started out, they're singles, probably young military families, and then the other two largest groups are what's known on the Experian credit scale, I guess, as American royalty, which is like very high. These are like golf cart type communities,
Mm.
and also booming with confidence. That's another metric that they use. So these are very wealthy families on one end that live at the beaches, and then there's also these young military families that are just starting out. So Mayport is a very diverse economic community. When we came to Mayport last year, we launched February 19th of last year. We had 8 people from the church that was there, of course, and then we brought 11 people over from River City plus my family. And our highest attendance was in July at Friend Day, and we saw, I think, a couple of people saved that day, with 63 people in attendance that day.
That's good.
We ended 2023 Christmas Eve with 57 people, which that was our second highest attendance, which is really cool. And then in 2024, we've been averaging about 40 people. We've celebrated 9 people getting saved and baptized this first year. And my prayer to God was, hey, Lord, maybe let us see one person baptized per month. And we've got 9, and we've got a couple.
Was anybody pregnant when you baptized them?
Wasn't no, no. That would have been. I would have counted it. You know.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
oh
that's
yeah.
10, not 9. But
That's terrible. I can't believe I said that. I'm on a roll today. But 9, that's great, man.
so it's been great.
Maybe we can share, Luke. Luke will grab this. Maybe we can share the picture of your first day with that 57
Oh
attendance.
yes, yeah,
I
yeah.
think I've got that somewhere.
Yep.
It's really cool. Maybe people would enjoy seeing that. Um, and I want to go back. I want to go back first and comment on the parent church, plant church relationship. Ours has been incredibly strong and connected. I mean, you've kept your office here through this entire time, and it's certainly available as long as you need it to be. But also, I think even though you've had an office here, we've tried to keep you free to be able to minister over in Mayport. As soon as we're done recording here, I think you're going over to a food
Yep.
pantry, which has been a huge outreach. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I think number one, we we had a long-term relationship. I think that's optimal.
Yeah.
You know, I do appreciate people who have internship things where they invite people to come in. We've done a little bit of that, but there's nothing like sending someone from your congregation, even in your case, a staff member from the congregation, somebody who's embedded deep into the culture of the church. There's a huge win for the congregation there. That's number one. Number two was the willingness and the actually encouragement to send people with you to form a worship team, a children's team, a nursery team. I mean, it's not like it's huge, but it's enough to allow you to get off the ground.
Yeah.
And I think even since then, maybe even 1 or 2 other families have gone on, I think. Am I right about that?
Yeah, the 2 actually have kind of migrated from River City to Hope at this point, and
Yeah.
they've been tremendous helpful.
Right.
It's been
And we
awesome.
encourage that. Like, I still encourage that. Like, I think there's sometimes, in more cases, more opportunities. Smaller church, more opportunities is the way it should be.
Mhm.
I think of Harry is the example that jumps out to me. I remember when you guys did that community day where there was live music.
Yeah.
And you remember that
Yeah.
before you got started? And I stood back there and watched Harry leading worship and singing.
Yeah.
And I went up to him. I was like, dude, why did you, you know? And his answer to me was, well, you never asked. And the truth is, I didn't even have a reason to ask
Yeah.
because we had that stuff covered. I wasn't thinking about somebody who could lead worship and play guitar in that because it was already there. And he did play. He played, But leading worship, I was like, well, holy cow! And there's another man.
Yep.
I didn't know he played or sang, and he sings right there with you
They
guys.
do great.
And,
They're the two of the most faithful men in our church right now. It's been great having them there.
and then then you also give with it financial contributors. I
Mhm.
mean, I would guess most people who've gone with you give,
Yes.
and so that's another thing. It's a loss. You could look at it as a loss on our end, but it's not a loss. It's multiplication.
Mhm.
Um, and then of course the third element. So you got just the camaraderie, the longevity. You've got people go with, and you've got, I think the third thing is the financial support base. And man, it was exciting this year as we went through the whole year and saw that you are brushing the edge of autonomy after 12 months. And we have been there in the first year, really kind of paying your salary, kind of keeping that part going. And because offerings came up a little bit, we were able to, some of your bills and things were able to be paid. But this year, we're so close. I
It's
think
it's kind of scary getting to this point.
it
Yeah.
is. And I want to ask you some questions about that in a minute. But I want to say in January, man, if my numbers serve me correctly, we only are like undergirding the whole thing like $500 to $700, which is
Wow.
kind of crazy.
I have no idea.
Yeah, and I mean, we're here, we're ready to make sure it's all has a clean transition. But our goal's always been autonomy. Our
Mhm.
goal's always been self-sufficiency, and we're not just a campus. Although it is technically a campus right now, the goal is you being able to be out and be your own church with your own leadership and all those things, and then multiply yourself down the road,
Yep.
which I think is kind of the goal. So it's been a lot of fun. It's been one church being replanted, and now after 7 years, that replanted church has now replanted another church.
Yeah.
So I'm excited, man. I'm
It,
excited about.
it's super cool.
Isn't it cool?
That's
I mean,
awesome.
so just give me what is it like? What is it like to go in and see something completely dead, 6, 8 people, and a year later, you just what is it like? What
Well,
is it? What's it feel
I
like?
don't think there's a feeling like it. And some of it too, being coming to Jacksonville in 2016, and you've now seen the entirely new church come out in the 6 or 7 years that you've been here. The feeling is like no other. I remember the first Sunday that we baptized Callie,
Yeah,
and she's 9 years old, and she accepted Christ, and we were able to baptize her. We were standing there in an empty auditorium, literally empty, no pews, no nothing. The concrete was bare. There was concrete dust everywhere.
yeah,
I was barefoot walking across. We were greeting people afterward, and it was just so cool to see that that was the first person that had been baptized there since like 2018, I
yeah.
think, is what it was.
You're talking almost 4 years without baptism.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I mean I was there. I was there when at that baptism. I think like 10, 15 people
Mhm.
came over to watch it from our church. And yeah, you're right. I mean, walking in before the transformation, the cluttered pews. I still remember the cluttered pews.
Yeah.
I don't know that I've ever been in a church that had more cluttered pews. And we took them all out and redid the whole thing. It's like, that church is like a sleeping giant out there.
Mhm.
It used to run hundreds, couple hundred out in
Yep.
the 70s and 80s or whatever it was. So now to see 1 year later a church come alive and like there's a respectable church with visitors coming weekly. And so give me maybe, yeah, go ahead. What are you gonna
I
say?
will say this, like the first Sunday, and this is just this for those of you considering church planting, this is just what you're going to come to if you're a replant effort. You come in that first Sunday. I remember this. The first Sunday I was there, Reagan had just been born that week, and I walk in, and it was almost like, man, I don't want to be here. What am I doing here? And it was 8 people there, and it was just dead. It just felt like I was like, okay, I got to get through this Bible study and then get back on my baby, my wife, and make sure they're taken care of. You walk in there and you're like, it's just the air sucked out of the room. That's
Mhm.
what it felt like. As opposed to now, you walk in and you can sense there's an excitement. There's
Yep.
people that are excited. I've got. I was telling you about this past week. I have the opportunity to go preach at the Navy base. We are the closest church to the Navy base, and the U.S. Navy is trying to get these old retirees out into the community. And I'm like, well, let me give it a shot. I'm the closest church. Maybe they want to come. Who knows? And I announced to the church this past Sunday, look, I'm preaching on base at the chapel next week. For those of you that can get on base, because like half our church is retired Navy, y'all come with me
Mhm.
and come see these retirees and encourage them to come out to our church, perhaps. I had like 3 or 4 people after church. Hey, do you have a ride? I want to come with you.
Yeah.
So they want to come hear me preach at their chapel. Some of them actually went to church at the chapel before they found a church home. And so, but it's just a different culture. It's a different excitement now. And you walk in, when you say that you have a friendly church, I feel like now we actually do have a
Yeah.
friendly church.
Yeah.
So
And then we had a combined activity the other night, a men's stakeout.
yeah,
Would you have like 6 guys?
it's 5
Five
guys,
guys?
something like, I don't remember.
I mean, dude, there's more men basically that came with you than that you've started with total
Yeah,
people,
and
basically.
man, they loved it. They're like, man, that was some good steak.
Great. Yeah. Yeah. And I cooked that
Yeah,
steak.
that's
I
right.
cooked that steak.
It was good.
Yeah, it was awesome,
They
man.
enjoyed it.
Well, man, I don't know. For me, from my end, I am thrilled on so many levels. I'm thrilled for you seeing your gifts kind of come out, your leadership. That's exciting. Not, but I also think just like looking just from a sheer numbers and visual perspective, it's hard to even quantify 6 to 8 people in this nasty auditorium with dingy
Mhm.
pews crammed together like you can barely fit in them. Like there's probably enough pews for like 200 people to sit in
Right.
there.
Yeah. We're rolling around like peas in a pod.
And to watch this guy stand up and like play a song in a YouTube video for congregational worship
That's literally what they were doing. Yep.
to now a full band. And tell us about
Okay.
Josh.
Yeah.
This is one of my
This is
favorite
cool.
stories.
So
Yeah.
shout out to Josh Graver.
Oh yeah,
He's
man.
our worship leader right now. And so up until November of last year, I was, leading worship. I was playing the keyboard up there, and Harry and Louie and um, forget dropping the name. No, Tom. Tom is our
Oh
AV
yeah,
guy,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and we're so
You
I'm up.
three. So it's you
Yeah, yeah.
you play keyboard. Most people know that. And then you got your 2 guitar players. Kind
Yeah,
of you three.
right. And so I'm up there leading, and it's it's exhausting, right? You got to lead worship, 3 songs, scripture reading, then get up and preach, and so I'm standing on my feet for like an hour. Josh messages me out of the blue. Josh is an E7 at NAS Jacksonville, so he's a chief for those of you that are unfamiliar. He's a chief. He's about to make retirement in about 4 years. He messages me and says, "Look, I was a worship pastor up at my church in Virginia. We got transferred on orders to NAS, and my heart, my burden is to just help a church plant. I'm specifically not looking for a paycheck. I just want to serve somewhere
Mm.
until I retire from the Navy, and then I want to go plant a church. I wasn't sure if you needed a worship leader, but I figured I'd ask."
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes. Who
Yeah,
are you?
I remember you there in the kitchen, man, reading me that email, and I was like, "Are you serious?" And it was like, "Well, call the guy," you know.
So
Uh,
I had a couple meetings with him, had coffee with him, met with him, got his ministry philosophy. I watched a couple of the live streams from his previous church that he led worship at. And I mean, it's just like exactly
yeah,
what we needed. And
yeah.
so I was like, Josh, you run with it, man. Do whatever you need to. And he's just done. He has brought our live stream, and we're not quite live streaming yet, but our media ministry, our
Oh my
recordings,
word.
audio, visual, everything has just been everything that you see on Facebook has been because Josh has put it in place.
Absolutely.
And if you are listening out there and you need some serious help with your audiovisual work, whatever, shoot us a message, and I mean,
He's done wonders,
I'll
and
connect you
he's
guys. Yeah.
heavily personally invested,
Mhm.
knowing it's a church plant, knowing there's not a ton of resources. Some of the things you share with me that he's personally done, and I echo the thanksgiving to Josh, and may lots more people be like Josh.
Yeah.
Like go be like Josh,
Mhm.
right? You don't have to have a ministry page. Josh is as in ministry right now is some youth pastor out there, youth pastor and 15
Yep.
kids and making $60,000 and planning a balloon toss.
Yeah.
This guy is literally brought a church to no level. And then a lady from our church, a medical doctor
Mhm.
actually, felt called to go and help you, and she's a keyboard player, so you got the whole thing
Yeah,
relieved.
she's the keyboard player. She's also leading our women's ministry now.
Oh
She had her
yeah,
first Bible study last week, and the ladies all enjoyed
oh
it.
she's great.
It's been great. Yeah, it's
I
awesome.
love those. I love those people. These are laymen, but they're fully engaged in ministry. They're Aquila and Priscilla,
Mhm.
people all day long. It takes a team. That's what you're seeing. And I just love the story. So we got your 1 year anniversary coming up at the end of the month,
Yep.
and I'm looking forward to preaching one of the nights.
Saturday night.
Saturday
Yep.
night, Saturday night special,
Yeah.
champ.
Yeah.
coming at you, and we're going to celebrate what God's done. I'm going to invite several people from our church to come with
That'd be awesome.
on Saturday night, so we can just enjoy a good service together. But congratulations, man! Congratulations on your first year of church planting and church replanting. It's been great. You got one or two maybe as we kind of wrap here, things that you really learned or things that have been neat for you, just from a leader perspective, pastoring church, anything that just kind of stands out to you as was cool.
Probably the thing, I guess, lesson I've learned is, and it's been kind of funny adjusting to it, is that when I was here, assistant pastor, it was always easier to say, I don't have the answer to that question, go ask pastor, right? Or I can't make that decision. I don't, I can't the question that you're asking is a vision setting type of question. You need to ask pastor about that. The buck stops with pastor. And then now I'm looking over my shoulder going like, wait, I am the pastor.
Yeah.
So it places the weight of decisions upon my shoulders in a way that I had not been able to experience when I was assistant pastor, and that's been it's been new, it's been interesting, it's fun, but it's also terrifying. So that's probably the number one thing that sticks out to me. Um, for those that are considering church planting, it's you better know you're called. That's
Mm-hmm.
probably the number one piece of advice I would give to people. If you're not called, you're going to not stick it out. And I realize I'm only a year in, and to a lot of people, I feel like I'm cheating because we already had a building, we already had some people there. But if you don't solidify, if you both you and your wife, not to mention, if you both do not feel like you're solidly called and convinced, then don't do it. Do something else.
Absolutely.
Because this is not an effort for the faint-hearted. It takes a lot of prayer. It takes a lot of just dedication. And we've already had, I've told you some stories about this. We've already had one family say, "Hey, we're out because of a doctrinal disagreement." And so it's definitely not easy, but it's so incredibly rewarding. It's been amazing to see what God has done this first year.
Absolutely. There's going to be, the thing I've been meditating on this a lot the last couple weeks, just with different church and personal difficulties, man, just life. Ministry has enormous sorrows and challenges, and it's part of it. Like I've sometimes wondered, I'm so far in now. Is this gonna give? Is this gonna change? Is this gonna shift? Is there ever gonna be relief? And I keep thinking, a relief's coming one day.
Mm-hmm.
The burden gets laid down one day. Until then, you can expect spiritual warfare, enormous difficulties, joy, of course. I mean, there's lots of joy.
Oh, yeah.
We have a lot of fun and a lot of breaks and family memories and great church memories, man. But at the end of the day, there's also a steady heartbeat of suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And if you and your family are not in on that, you're just not going to make it.
Right.
Angie and I were even talking this morning, and she just said, Brian, I just know that suffering and difficulty is part of it, and we don't always have to be looking for a way around it.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you just got to suffer.
Yep.
And it's okay. And if your wife especially is not with it, you're not going to make it very long, because she's going to pull you. She's going to say, let's get out of here, man.
Mm-hmm.
And good for you. And you've done a great job with all that, man. Well, Lord bless you, bro. And I'm glad you came back on.
Yeah.
And I look forward to seeing you at your church, and rejoicing with all you've done. Aaron, we'll have your contact information, your church information here on the site. If anybody wants to reach out to you about church planning, we'll have your email address and contact information. So God bless you guys. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time on the Church Advance podcast.
Thanks again for joining us for this episode, and we really would appreciate it if you could leave us that 5-star review, and then of course share this content with your friends. We want to help as many pastors and church leaders as we can, and be sure to, of course, follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you may listen to podcasts. And go ahead and subscribe to the Church Advance YouTube channel at youtube.com/@churchadvance. This podcast is hosted by Brian Sams. It is co-hosted and produced by myself, Luke Clayton, and the team at mustincrease.com. If you want to connect with Brian, be sure to head over to his website at briansams.com. Well, we really look forward to seeing you again in the next episode as we continue to advance a reformation of fellowship, partnership, and gospel hope amongst Bible-believing pastors and churches right here on Church Advance with Brian Sanders.